Welcome to Here's a Thing. My task is to illuminate the course of becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. I am Scott Schroeder, and this is my mission. Grab the flag of balance and reason, and let's get up this hill, shall we? I think it's only fair to start the whole thing out with the big question, why? And that's reasonable because the whole "because I said so" thing just doesn't fly. And quite frankly, it's dismissive to the person who asked what is a perfectly reasonable question, but it's damn dismissive of the whole concept. So I want to delineate a few things before we get to the discussion. Regarding SEMPER. You may ask, why? Why bother? I do my thing and it's all good. Who cares if I leave trash on the ground or don't separate my recyclables or leave the shopping cart in the parking space or don't put the toilet seat down or don't use a turn signal or bump my car stereo through the neighborhood? Who cares if I eat gravy and Red Bull 9 times a week or don't read to my kid? Or let my teenager have unsupervised access to social media 24/7, genius. Or have porn on the computer, which is not really any different than the previous item. Or smoke, or drink every day, or read, or think, or write, or meet with friends, or just don't damn care about anything in general. Who cares? What's the big deal? Because you don't live in a vacuum. And if you aren't engaging in behaviors that will produce the highest form of you, then you are failing yourself. And by failing yourself, you are actively creating a whirling vortex of chaos around you into which everyone you encounter is pulled. And those people damn sure care about how you treat yourself and those around you. And if that's not the case, if the people around you don't care either, then you have failed at being a human on the most fundamental level. You are now living in a pit of codependent misery. And perhaps, if you went in the other direction, you'd surround yourself with people who elevate you instead of dragging you into that pit. Maybe then you'd be compelled to take care of your body, mind, and spirit. Perhaps you'd be an inspiration to your children and your children's friends. Geez, that would be something. Maybe, and perhaps, even then you'd attract other people into your orbit who want to better themselves, and then that circle grows out into your community and beyond. And then, you are something special. You are something valuable to humanity without even being a celebrity, or a politician, or a ball player. You are now becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. You are an asset. You are a source of light. And you are a springboard for the greatness of others. I can't think of a better thing to be. You need to be fully aware that everything starts with you and your tenebrous potential to be something. When you come into this world, you are nothing more than a little ball of potential. A small force of chaotic energy with the potential to become something dynamic. You have the potential to be anything within the scale of human existence, from bottom-feeding malevolent predator to, meh, I'm just here, to a force in the elevation of humanity. And that potential isn't defined. It isn't preordained. Your potential is shaped through an ongoing series of decisions and actions affected by a constantly evolving world. Why? Should you make every effort possible to be the highest form of you? Visualize your life in these terms. No matter where in the social construct you were born, if you do not seek to elevate yourself, then you will simply seek the lowest place you can occupy with the least amount of perceivable effort. Hold on to that thought. Because of this, you will be more likely to be trapped in a difficult living environment. It will be impossible for you to find a mate who isn't just like your sorry self, or even worse. You are far more likely to engage in self-medication through cheap intoxicants and general immorality. The food you put into your body when you have it will deteriorate your physical condition, and your lifestyle will cause mental health problems, rapid aging, and constant illness. And you won't even be self-aware enough to see that the place you chose by looking down the scale of effort ironically requires every bit of effort you can produce not to die that day. But you will die. And you will die relatively young. And you will die with little to no people who will mourn you or even talk about your existence after your pathetic death spiral. So you can use all of your effort to aim up and elevate yourself, or you can settle into passive disinterest in how you live and use all of your effort merely to survive one crappy day after the next. There is no path of least resistance. Whatever life you construct through time and evolving matters will give you resistance. You can solve, or you can merely survive. So no, there is no path of least resistance, but there is a path of least effectiveness. Regarding SEMPER, we've done a bunch of episodes and clips talking about different things, and I never want to go too far afield, so to speak, from the foundation, which is SEMPER, which the SEMPER concept and SEMPER Triad, which of course is the putting yourself into the mission, the personal mission of becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve by taking care of your body, your mind, and your spirit. And so I never want to do too much without coming back to the foundation and talking about it. If we bring new people into the fold, if people discover the podcast or the videos for the first time, we want to make sure that we never are too far away from first principles, as they say. If you try to live in a world that says that that's not going to matter, then you're going to find that you live in a constant state of friction and disappointment and conflict and a whole bunch of other nasty variables that don't need to be. And you're probably going to be pretty confused about it because you just think that nothing matters. I'll do my thing. It doesn't affect anybody. And you never can put your finger on it. You never can put your thumb on it as to why your life is completely and totally chaos all the time. And it's because you are not living up to your potential. Potential is there. It's a thing that is out there. It's not when a baby's born or a child is, going from middle school to high school and transitioning into that time where they're really starting to sort of shape their future. And they're really starting to first have those inklings of what can I be? What should I be? What will I be? Then you're still potential. You're still that little ball of potential. And you need to organize those feelings and organize those thoughts and organize your actions into things that you understand that matter, that create the best version of you. And that's what SEMPER is. What do you got to say about that?
Well, first of all, of course, I agree with you on that. And
Thank you very much for saying that.
Not to be a sheeple or anything.
This
But no,
episode of Here's the Thing is brought to you by SodaStream, the crisp
exactly, per
refreshing.
usual.
Anyway, as you were.
No, I want to actually step back just for a second on that.
Step on back, sister.
All right, because I mentioned this amazing podcast / vidcast to everyone that I see, including strangers. And when they say, well, what's it about? I say, well, it's all about being a self-engendering machine of now you have made me screw up.
Wah, wah, wah.
A perpetual effectiveness and resolve. And actually, I'm glad that I did that, because that actually kind of brings in what I'm trying to say here. Because when I say self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve, the first thing I get is, wow, that's a mouthful. I think we should take a moment to back up and explain each one of those words. You've done it before, but I think we need to do it again, because it is a lot to take in, but it also just encompasses everything.
Isn't it amazing that you say that? And I have right here in front of me a breakdown. Isn't that wonderful how partnership works like that? So yes.
Great minds think alike.
Indeed. Self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. That is quite a mouthful. So let's break it down. Engender. Engender means to cause an action, to generate or instigate. And then when you bracket engender with self on the front end and machine on the back, you have an engine that creates its own fuel. So you have to engender, to generate or instigate, to make happen, to produce. And then you put self on the front of it. And that's kind of, well, hopefully self-evident. Self-engendering machine. Okay. Now, to kind of back up a little bit and sort of get back into those words, self. This is where it all has to start. Everything about this concept, about SEMPER, starts with the self. The entire group of words starts with self. You can look outward for help and resources, but it begins with the self. You have to make this your mission. You make this mission personal to you. That's what you have to do. You have to keep going down the road and keep going down the road. And as we say, do the things that you need to do in order to ingrain them into your consciousness so they become self-engendering. So that's the self, to engender, engendering, to produce, to cause to happen, to cause an action, give rise to, generate, instigate. Again, this is a word that it means, it's an action word. It's production. It's moving things. It's generating action, motion. So when you to self-engender, you are producing or generating yourself, obviously. And a machine, let us not presume to skip over things that seem kind of self-evident and simple. A machine is an apparatus consisting, now this is, when I wrote this down, again, never presume that people know things. You hear a thing, you see a thing, that's the thing, there it is. But how many times do you get down into it? Everybody knows what a machine is inherently. Everybody knows what a machine is. But if you look at how it breaks down, the etymology and the definition of the word, it really fits in with this, because a machine is an apparatus consisting of interrelated parts with separate functions used in the performance of some kind of work. So now we're getting somewhere. Self-engendering machine. All right, I got this. So I got to do it. It starts with me. I got to do it myself. I got to initiate. I got to instigate. I got to generate using this machine, which is this thing and this thing and this thing, which is a group of moving parts working toward an end, working toward an action, working toward a production, producing some kind of work. And then we get to perpetual, which of course is constant, persistent, and unending. And that's what we say about this mission, the SEMPER mission, the SEMPER concept, is it doesn't end. There's no end. This isn't outcome-based education, which was a disaster. There's no end to this. There's no point that you're working toward, because you can't get to enlightenment. You don't achieve that. What did they say? If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Because if somebody tells you that they are enlightened, then you're in bad company, because that's typically ultimately a self-destructive attitude, and destroys everybody else around you. If you think you have, that's basically Milton's definition of evil, which is one that, to paraphrase, one who's in love with their own thoughts and is unwilling to even consider the transcendent. Effectiveness. All right. Effectiveness, productivity, efficiency, capability, and practicality. Sounds pretty good. I like that. So now we're getting somewhere, and we're winding up to resolve, which is great that we sort of start with the self and end with resolve, which is willpower, steadfastness, intention, courage. That's a good one right there. Courage, fortitude. So you put all those things together. You start with the self, you produce, you cause to happen using this machine that we talked about. And you do things to make them perpetual. So that when you do that action that is an improvement upon yourself, or helpful to someone or something around you, that you do it to the point of where it becomes it becomes something that's not a part of your thought process. It becomes a part of you. And there is no longer a relationship, like a spatial relationship between the action and what caused the action. It's part of you. And that is what self-engendering means. The self-engendering machine makes its own fuel. And that's kind of your goal here, is step by step, is to create the good, create the building blocks of good and of production within your life on this road, on this mission, that it's not something where you have to go to the gas station. It's something that you make your own fuel.
Well, it's a matter of creating a habit. And when you have that habit, you no longer have to think about it. You just instinctively do it. That's
exactly right. It's self-engendering. You don't, again, the relationship between the thought and the action is gone. It just dissolves. And then resolve is, just sum it up in one word: fortitude. Okay. Courage. So that is the SEMPER concept. That's the words broken down. So if you can kind of, you put all those words together, all those syllables, 19 syllables, it's a big fat mouthful. But if you marry the concepts and the thoughts with the words, then it just it becomes something you don't have to remember. And that's kind of the point. So when you combine these concepts, you get a person that I'd like to emulate. I'd like to be that. And so how does one become a self-engendering machine of perpetually effective resolve? It doesn't seem like something you could simply roll out of bed and proclaim. I can stretch and scratch and I'm awesome. That is me today. I am awesome. That's Stuart Smalley philosophy, because that says you don't have to work today. If you roll out of bed and say that I am this, then you don't have to work today. There is potential, and there is chaos, and there is order, and you got to learn how to deal with it all. And you got to learn how to deal with it effectively. And you don't live in a vacuum. And so that's why we do this. That's why I do this. Let me not overstep. Not we. I'm just me. I'm just a dude trying to do my thing. And I'm sitting here in front of this microphone and now in front of this camera. And I've said it multiple times. If nobody ever hears me or sees me, fine. Because part of what we do, which we'll get into here in a second, is reading, writing, thinking, connecting, speaking ideas into existence, writing them down, saying them out loud so that they can formulate into fully formed, mature thoughts. And that's what this enables me to do. And if anybody else out there kind of hears it or sees it and says, you know what, I think that's a pretty good concept, and I think that I do have a responsibility to be the highest version of me possible, then fantastic. So that is why I choose to go down this road. Part of becoming a self-engendering machine requires discipline. You're not going to be able to do anything along these lines without some modicum of discipline, self-discipline. You have to have discipline in order to create this self-engendering machine, in order to do that thing one time, the thing that's hard. And by the way, you should go do things that are hard. You should force yourself into uncomfortable environments. You should do things that are hard, because that will open up your thought process. That will you should have conversations with people with whom you disagree.
It's called growth.
Because it's likely they know something that you don't. And having a conversation with someone with whom you disagree, you will learn something every single time. You may hate it. It may be painful, but you will learn something every single time. If you silo yourself and you only talk with people who say the exact same thing and think the exact same thing that you do, nobody's ever going to learn anything, and who cares? You're not ever going to be pushed into the zone where you can do some critical thought and critical learning. And maybe, hopefully, you can turn it. Socrates was basically executed for this kind of thing, because it's dangerous to make people think. It's dangerous to the machine and the establishment. But the Socratic method is to basically come into, when we boil it down, we kind of paraphrase it like this. There's a group of people talking, and they're all saying, here's a thing. Yes, I agree with that thing. That's a good thing. We should only talk about that thing. And then you come in and go, yeah, but what about the other thing? And when you accept the premise that you don't know everything and that you are not correct, and that you enable yourself to think about an alternative concept or a different idea, it doesn't mean that you're going to go down the road and go, you know what? You're right. I agree with you. Now I only agree with you. That's not the point. The point is to flip your perceptions upside down sometimes. Think about it from the other side, or, there's not just two sides, from a different side. And it's either going to grow your philosophy, or it might change your philosophy, or it might strengthen your philosophy. But if you never go down that road, that sort of Socratic road, then again, you're going to be, the term these days is siloed. You're going to be in a thought silo where everything is right here and nothing goes this way. So discipline, you got to wanna. And that's the thing. If you don't wanna, just go away until you do, because if you don't wanna, then you're just pretending. And the root of, here's the thing, the root episode, the root inspiration of this entire podcast was based on authenticity. That one word, authenticity. And if you don't wanna, but you talk about what you wanna, then you're just lying to yourself. And I can't think of anything more pathetic than being inauthentic with yourself. That indicates a need, a whole different set of needs altogether.
You once got on to me about discipline, and we were discussing it, and I was talking about my growth this year with getting into a good exercise routine and good eating and reading and all the things that we're talking about here, body, mind, and spirit. And I was saying that I had zero discipline. starting the beginning of the year. I'm an only child. I got I have 100 reasons that I could explain why I have zero discipline, but it's building. Now, when I say that I have discipline now, I mean that I had zero and now I have some, and each thing that I do perpetually, the more I obtain. But man, I will backslide still.
Yeah,
but it is it's a stair climbing event.
Yeah, it's also very important to know that in a lot of people, I think, can relate to this concept if I talk about it with diet and exercise in particular, because those are the two things that pretty much everybody thinks about, whether you do anything about it or not. I think pretty much all adults have thought about their diet and their exercise. Physical health is made up completely and entirely of lagging indicators. And what that means is you can eat healthy and exercise well for 2 or 3 weeks and not see a thing. In fact, you might still be gaining weight. You might still feel bad. You might still be tired. You might still, you're not lifting more weight, or you're not running any farther or faster. And they quit because they don't see any results. And that kind of goes back again to what we were talking about with what a tragedy outcome-based anything is. You can't focus on the outcome. You can't focus on the time that it takes. Because if you do those things, you're just going to be miserable to start with. And you're pointing yourself at some sort of arbitrary goal that indicates a stopping point. And why, whether it's education or physical fitness or emotional health or anything like that, how is there a stopping point? So you can't do these things with outcomes in mind. People diet and exercise for 3 weeks, they see no results and they quit. Or they binge out on ice cream and pizza one night, and then they're like, man, I feel so crappy now. Oh, the heck with it. I've already ruined everything. And then so they don't go back the next day or the next day. And then it's a week, and then it's 2 weeks, and then they're like, screw it. And then they're back 10 pounds heavier or more out of shape than they were before, simply because they fell off the mission or the path or the wagon or whatever one time, or they weren't seeing immediate results. And that's really important to know, because again, I know this is all very Zen Buddhist, but there's no end. There's no goal. I'm sorry, there is a goal, but the goal continues to go. Your goal is to stay on the mission. That's your goal, is to stay on the mission. But there's no end point. There's no end to the path. There's no resolution to the mission. And you have to conceptualize and be okay with that. And if you do fall off, if you do have a day in which you don't do something that you should have done, that you've been doing well, or you have a month of not doing something that you were doing that you know you should do, there is no guardrail that keeps you from getting back onto your mission. So I'm glad you said that, because it's important to know that you can always pick back up. And you should never be discouraged from seeking that highest form of you. Doesn't matter if you fall off. We're here for a long time. And we the culture thinks too much in terms of what happens right now. And we don't like things that are ethereal and don't have a concrete sort of resolution point to them. So you can get back on mission. You can correct the course. You can do these things. You're allowed to. Nobody's going to say no, because this is your mission. Nobody else is in charge of this. That's another thing that you need to remember. No one else is in charge of this. You build your own mission and you execute it. But you have to have the discipline to stay on it, and you have to have the discipline that if you fall off, you can get back on. And that's mental, emotional, and physical discipline to get back on mission. And it's really difficult to get back on mission if you don't surround yourself with people who want what's best for you or with people who elevate you. If you have a bunch of malcontents, a bunch of negative Nellies, or a bunch of people who are unhappy with themselves in your life, you're in deep, deep trouble. That's what we talked about last week. First of all, you're not Mother Teresa and you can't play lifeguard to the universe. So it's not your job to rescue anyone. That is never your job. That is presumptuous beyond belief to think that you can to start with.
But it's different now. Explain that, because rescuing is different than helping. It's good to help.
Of course, you're always there to help, but you can't be on a mission that if you say, well, I'm here and I'm doing well, so I'm going to go, that person in my life who is, and this is the key point to remember about this. And I always say, I'm absolutely cutthroat when it comes to this. Family, friends, acquaintances, bosses, employees, anything in your life that is negatively affecting your mission, cut, gone, go. However, if that person comes to a realization of their own, gets on their own mission, decides to kind of do their own SEMPER thing, absolutely, man, I'm right here for you. You know, I'm not running away from you, but if you're in an unhealthy position, if you are in a place where you are nothing but chaos and friction to those around you, I am not going to have you in my life.
Amen.
Absolutely not. So remembering this whole thing is about the part of the concrete that builds the foundation is surrounding yourself with people who elevate you. Create a healthy environment in which the inevitable negativity of life doesn't affect you. It's always going to be there. You can't isolate yourself into a world without friction. You just can't do it. But you can control who has an effect on your life to a greater or lesser extent. And you do have to learn conflict resolution is a thing. You can't just bump into somebody and go, oh, well, I don't get along with you immediately, so you're gone. These concepts they're not black and white, okay? You can't sort of say, all right, here's the definition of this, so I'm doing this with this and this with this. And when I say that about cutting away the cancer, cutting away the negativity, cutting away the friction, you surround yourself, meaning your circle, your confidants, the people who you trust most in the world. And that's, maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's, whoever it is around you, you bring them tight because they're more precious than anything that you can possibly imagine. And they will be the ones who will be there if you fall off mission to encourage you to say, hey, dude, it's all right. Come on. Those are the people with whom you need to surround yourself. If you have people around you who are like, oh, you fell off mission, huh? Come on down, stay down here with us. It's all good, brother. We got you down here. No. And that's maybe the most difficult choice you can make in life is who to surround yourself, who to keep around you, and who to keep at arm's length. And again, kind of going back to last week, or 2 weeks ago, which is just because you're not my friend and that word means something doesn't mean you're my enemy. Doesn't mean I have antipathy toward you. It just means you're not, you need to stay over there and I'll be over here. Whenever we cross paths, we'll be cordial to one another, but I'm not going to let you affect what I'm doing in a negative fashion. So you create that healthy environment in which the inevitable negativity of life doesn't affect you. And you should probably throw away your TV and get off social media to detox from that as it is. But, that's a whole other can of worms. That's my hill to die on. You guys do whatever you want with that. But anyway, so where to start? So now we know we asked why and we defined. So where to start? And first gear is always the slowest. The train doesn't leap away from the station at top speed. And if you've ever been behind an 18-wheeler at a red light, You know what their first 3 years are like. It starts slow. And in order to begin to work toward being this machine, as far as I can tell, you need to be disciplined enough to create your own fuel. And that's what we talk about with being a self-engendering machine. You can't be self-engendering without the self. You can't rely on someone else to create the fuel for you. You strive to surround yourself with good and decent people, but you can't make them do the heavy lifting for you. So start small, set a singular goal. It's what we talk about constantly. Find something that you can do to start this mission. Pick a thing, one damn thing that you know that you should do, no matter how small, and do it. And then do it again. Discipline. I don't care if you're tired or hungry or in a bad mood or don't want to, or it's way over there. Do it again. Then do it again and again and again until it's no longer a thing that you know you should do, but it's a thing that just is. The relationship of motion and time, that's what I say with this concept, the relationship of motion and time is gone from this activity, and consideration just disappears. It just is. In other words, you don't think about it. You don't go through, it becomes latent. It becomes automatic. It becomes rote. It's a thing that your body does without you even thinking about it. It's the operating disk going on in the background of yourself. So that's how, and I know that's maybe an oversimplification for some people, but it has to start small. If you start on a grand scale, you're liable to fail on a grand scale because you can't start in fifth gear. So does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and yes. No? Okay.
If you do, be sure to leave a comment and maybe we'll address it in future episodes.
Yes, indeed. So the mechanism of SEMPER concept is the SEMPER Triad. The things that you need to develop, fortify, and cultivate. You think about that. That's kind of very earthy. It's very agrarian terms. And I like that because it's from our beginnings. It's from the earth. It's from the soil, the roots. You develop, fortify, and cultivate these things, which is to care for your body, your mind, and your spirit. And the reason that we do this, and by the way, there's a couple of new thoughts that I've sort of woven into this, which I think are part of the fundamentals of this. And so why body? Why do you take care of your body? I should only really I take care of my brain first, right? If I take care of my brain, then my brain runs everything else. Well, if you don't take care of your body, your brain is not going to have anywhere to live. And there's an awful lot of things that we do to ourselves: alcohol, drugs, smoking, eating poorly, not staying physically fit, that destroy the brain, physiologically destroy the brain. But besides that, the reasons that you care for your body, as we've talked about, are longevity. And this is one that when you and I first spoke in this medium, that I brought something very personal to this, which was my father. Now, longevity, you take care of your body for longevity. That means you take care of your body the best you can with what you have so you can be around as long as possible. That doesn't mean that you are at the gym 8 days a week and, you're eating nothing but kale and protein powder. That is not what this is about. And I know there would be people out there, not in this audience, because if you think this way, I guarantee you've already turned this off. But that is not what I'm talking about. You take care of your body, this frame, this thing that you were given to house the brain, the mind, the spirit, the engine that enables you to work towards the mission of being the highest form of you. You care for it for longevity because there are people around you who want you around for as long as possible. My father did not take care of his body, and he died at 69 years of age, which is ridiculous in these days. My family, his side of the family, does not have a history of heart disease or cancer or just dudes dying early or anything like that. He died probably 15 to 20 years on average earlier than the males on that side of my family. And it was because he didn't care for his body. Doesn't matter why, doesn't matter how, he did not take care of his body. Now, he did not think in terms of, I don't know why, because I told him this over and over, but he did not think in terms, he was not able to think in terms of caring for my body is something that I need to do for the people around me. Because there's a lot of people that loved him and that wanted him around. And as I said, the last time we spoke about this, he had little bitty baby grandchildren, and he now has 2 grandchildren born after he died. And I'm sure they would love to have loved to have met him. And it's really sad on a different level other than my father's dead. It's really sad that he could have lived 15, 16, 20 years longer. And he just didn't, just because of this particular issue. So take care of your body for longevity. And the longevity it's for those who love you. And you take care of your body for readiness. What does that mean? Zettel Moyer, what does that mean?
Well, it can mean a lot of things, but
yeah, but what does it mean?
Well, it means to be ready for any kind of situation, sir.
Exactly. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. You need to be physically prepared for whatever the variety of situations that this unkind world is going to throw at you. You can't be ready. You cannot train for everything, but you can get yourself into a reasonable physical condition that allows you to be able to reasonably deal with adverse situations. You cannot, it is to me, it is amoral and is a failure as a man, as a husband, as a father, speaking from my own perspective. It is a complete and total failure if I am not prepared to take care of my family in any kind of an adverse situation like that. You can define readiness in your life how you need it to based on your mission, but you need to be ready for the ugliness of life. You need to take care of your body for well-being. We talked about this last time with you about when you related your story about quitting smoking and about how you physically were more capable. You could work out longer. You could do things. You weren't tied. And as you said today, you weren't out in a blizzard in your snowsuit because you had to have that cigarette. So there were many, many aspects about that. And I don't want to get this locked into smoking because it's not really what it's about. But your overall well-being is affected. If you cannot find me someone who can honestly say that if they are doing the best they can with what they have physically, and I want to make that point over and over again. It's very important because I don't want this to be misconstrued as we all got to be CrossFit or bodybuilders. That's ridiculous. You do the best you can with what you have to create the best version of you. Taking care of your body increases your well-being, and that sort of goes out and sort of encompasses all of it. And here's a thing. Taking care of your body very definitely affects your financial viability. Does it not? Oh, you like that one.
Yes, no, that's huge. I mean, that was one of the things when I counted up the dollars spent on a pack of smokes, and they're not cheap like they were when we were in high school. You know what I'm saying? That shit adds up.
And if you kept smoking or
then the doctor bills would have added up.
Exactly. And this is, again, the excuses that we will give ourselves to not either engage in a behavior we know we should engage in or disengage from a behavior that we know we should disengage from. The excuse making that we'll do is just pathological. And that's just a human thing. And that comes from a lack of discipline because you don't want to quit smoking. You don't want to exercise. You don't want to eat better. You don't want to go for a walk. You don't want to take the steps instead of the elevator. So you'll find whatever damn excuse that you can. And to get back to the financial viability thing, the occurrence of type 2 diabetes in Western culture right now is catastrophic. And it's because of diet. And it's because of processed foods and all the things that we've done to ourselves in our very hectic, very busy lives that we think are an awful lot busier than they actually are. But the amount of money that you're going to put out in medical care, the amount of strain that you are going to put on the system when you're in the hospital or you're in the emergency room or you're at urgent care or you're at the doctor's office 10 times more than your averagely healthy human goes to your financial viability. And you can't get away from that. And those are things that should motivate you as a whole to take care of your body.
I also noticed I couldn't sing anymore. And I did not want to be 70 and sound like Gert.
Yeah, where I live, which is across the bridge from Hilton Head Island, if anybody is familiar with this particular area, and in any beach, touristy kind of beach environment, doesn't even have to be really touristy, but any beach environment, you can look. The average woman looks 10 or 15 years older than she actually is because she's on the beach. She's out at the pool all the time. And then when you add on the drinking and the smoking, it's remarkable. Yeah. It is remarkable, the physical effect.
Saddle
that
bag.
It's a remark, and it's not even. I'm not even talking about that. The lower half. I'm talking about the face.
I'm talking about the whole that you look like a saddlebag.
Oh yeah.
The whole skin is just rough and leathery. And,
it's awful. And listen, if that's your choice, then that's your choice, and I don't care. But what are you doing to the people around you when you have, carcinoma and you have lung cancer and you have mouth cancer and you have liver disease and all these kinds of, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the second part of the triad is your mind. Take care of your mind. And there's a million bazillion different ways that you can do this. These are mine. These are my concepts. These are my things that I think are sort of fundamental to, well, that's a poor way to say that. There's nothing that's sort of fundamental. I think it's kind of fundamental, but not really. It's foundational-ish, but not really. So fundamental to caring for the mind, which is the four things that I've said, which is read, write, think, and connect. And I wanted to briefly explain how I conceptualize these things. And I'm going to come back to reading because that's really important. And it's something that in the digital age, we've really, really gotten away from because we don't have to read very much stuff anymore. And reading somebody's Facebook post to me really doesn't count very much as reading because that's not very deep and it doesn't stretch your mind very much for the most part. But to writing is important and maybe has gone away as a thing that we do as a culture is writing and sitting down with a journal and a pen or a pencil or sitting at your computer or at your iPad and getting your thoughts down, getting them out of your head. And this is actually a concept, a technique that helps trauma victims, because there's a very definite, tangible process that happens, which is something that is nebulous in your head, something horrible that happens to you in your past when you were a child that you never talk about, because why would you ever want to talk about it? And you never, of course, you never wrote it down because it's horrible. You don't want to remember this stuff. You don't want to think about it, but you can't understand why it happened. And it burdens you and it destroys you. It eats you from the inside until you confront it and deal with it. And one of the best ways to do that is to write about it. Write it down. That is personal to you. No one else has to see that, but you got to get these ideas out of your head. And when you do this, everything that's going on in your head is just, it's like, snow bouncing around on the television screen. It's just white noise. It's incongruous. And you have to, the simple act, the physical act of writing things down, to kind of get back to what I was talking about with trauma, it helps organize the thoughts, get them out of your head, put them in a narrative form, and then a mature mind is able to deal with that. It's able to deal with that as a story. It doesn't make it less horrible, whatever happened to you in terms of trauma, but you're able to start making steps towards dealing with it because it's a thing. You've gotten it out of your head. It's on paper. So writing your thoughts down, I'm not talking about necessarily having to journal each day, although I think that's a really important mental exercise. It helps you organize and sort of prioritize. But just writing things down in free form helps the white noise come out of your head and become clear. And then
I notice patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can address those patterns, whether they're good or bad, and you can write more about them. Or you go to the next, one of the next steps, which is to think. So read, write, think, connect. So writing, cannot overstate how important writing down your thoughts is, but thinking about it. And I don't mean, oh yeah, there was a kitten on the sidewalk today and he was cute. I'm talking about just really turning off the noise in your room. And we have a difficult time with that, with TVs and radios and social media and everything else blinking and flashing and beeping and going on in our lives. Good God, man, you got to get into a quiet room and just be and allow your mind to wander and allow yourself to think. What's that word that I always use? Ruminate. Allow yourself to ruminate and get at things, peel the onion and think in strange concepts. Think in terms that you don't usually think of.
I honestly struggle with that. It's very difficult for me not to have something in some form, not necessarily entertaining, but just background noise. It's very difficult to sit there in silence. Very difficult. For one, I feel like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, I'm going to share with you. I hate that. I'm going to share with you something because I am the same way. I can't be in a dead quiet room. Can't do it. Cannot do it. One of the things is that I've discovered that I suffer from misophonia, which is a thing. You can look it up if you want to. I think it's MISO phonia, PHONIA, misophonia. And basically it's you key to certain noises and they make you borderline homicidal, like the sound of food smacking or the sound of gum chewing or dragging your feet, like the sound of people dragging their feet in the store or
teenagers bitching.
No. I'm talking about a noise, a thing, something. And a lot of times it's repetitive. And all of a sudden the brain makes that the only thing that you can hear. And it makes you can't make it go away. Anyway, so I can't be in a quiet room. I cannot sleep in a quiet room. And a lot of that has to do with being in the military. I can sleep under a C-130. I can't sleep in a quiet room.
Wow.
But I have a white noise machine in my bedroom, but I also have in my office, I keep, I made a recording. There's an app. There's an app for that. There's a white noise app that I downloaded, and it comes with its own library, but you can record your own stuff. And when we were flying on transatlantic, when we were going over to the UK a couple of years ago, I took that app out and recorded a 1-minute loop of the airplane, just the airplane noise. And it was a red-eye flight. It was late night. We took off at like 9 p.m. or something from Philly. So everybody was pretty much sleeping the whole way. So there was no external noise inside the cabin. And I was on a window seat, and we were right on top of the wing. So I had that good jet noise, and I recorded that. That's what I keep on a speaker in my office.
That also probably brings up some nostalgia.
Yeah, but in terms of just sort of what you were talking about, which is just you can't be in a room without something on. And I'm the same way. Before I started doing my white noise thing, I would always have the radio on, or then a podcast on, or whatever. And it could have even been the TV, but our TVs barely get turned on anymore. I got way, way away from that nonsense. But that's a solution for me for thinking, for being able to put myself in a good headspace where I'm not like in a sensory deprivation chamber where it's just all dead silent. And I'm like, yikes. Whatever technique, whatever thing, you need to be quiet. You need to be still. You need to be content with the environment and just let your mind go and wander. And sometimes it'll go places you don't want it to go, but that's part of the exercise. You have to maintain the plasticity of your brain. You have to push it. You have to stretch it, just like a muscle. You have to exercise it. You have to do things with it. You have to do things that are uncomfortable with it. You have to let it do things for itself. And so you have to do that in order to think, to ruminate over these ideas that you've written down, and then connect. You have to, we think that we are connected to the people around us because we're always in touch with everyone whenever we want to be through social media. And social media is a tool. Just like anything else, it's not in and of itself, it's not inherently good or inherently evil or inherently anything. It just is. It's a tool. You can misuse it and abuse it just like anything else. But so I rant and rave about social media, but it's because of what people do to themselves with it that frustrates me. Because it's inauthentic. You will create an environment on social media that stresses you out, and then you will bitch and complain about how stressed out you are. And then someone will say, why don't you turn off Facebook? And you go, but I can't. And then I'm done at that point. I'm like, you don't want to. I'll see you when you do. Come back when you do, and we'll talk. But we think we're connected, and we're not. I don't think we've ever been less connected. We know too much random bullshit about people we shouldn't know anything at all about, and none of it is meaningful. While at the same time, we don't know jack shit about our neighbors. Probably most of the time, we don't even know our neighbors, never even talk to them. Maybe we pass them when we go to check the mail and we're like, give them the old sup. But you need to connect with people, and you need to speak and listen. And these ideas that you've written down and that you've thought, you've ruminated, you need to speak them into existence now with other people. Because the mechanism that is enabled there, the thing that happens is that you will find out really quickly whether an idea has merit or validity. And if it does, it can grow in that environment. And if it doesn't, then it can be pretty hilarious because you can can receive an awful lot of ribbing for it, or it just goes away. It just dies. And that's an important thing. We've lost. That's a link in the chain of our culture that we have forcefully disposed of. Allowing ideas and thoughts into the arena to let them stand or fail by their merit. We don't do that anymore. We fight that. Something is away from our way of thinking. We are not going to allow it into our arena. And it's critical. It's critical. And so that is right, think, and connect. And I want to back up to read. And this is a thing that is so important on a level, on a societal level, not just a personal level, to help yourself grow, to increase that brain plasticity, to learn and develop and to do these things. But how we've fallen down as mentors and parents and adults and teachers and whatever else that we all should be in our culture with reading ourselves and reading to our kids and encouraging our kids to read and rewarding them for when they do read. The correlation between reading and the course your life takes it's really staggering to see. I mean, fundamentally, you can look at it and go, well, that makes sense. But until you see it laid out in front of you about how much a child who reads 1 hour per week will likely be a high school graduate at best and never make more than $35,000 a year and is likely to end up divorced and all of these kind of things. And the ladder goes from there. The more a kid reads, the higher they're going to achieve, period. And that's not just financial. That is every scope of life. And the first 3 years of cognitive and language development, how and how much do you speak to your child? And a lot of that can be from reading. The kids learn the first 1,000 words during this time. And it's critical that you speak to them and that you read to them, and that once they're old enough to read, that you encourage them to read and you read with them. Some of my most adorable memories are lying there with my daughter and reading to her or having her read to me until she fell asleep. And it can't be overstated. It cannot be overstated, the importance of this. And physiologically speaking, reading, the statistic is that reading reduces stress by 68%. Think about that for a second. Now think about that. You might say, well, that's an arbitrary number, and that's maybe for some people, but think about what you do when you read. And I mean, read a book. Grab your Kindle or grab a book and sit down and read. Exactly.
The rest of the world shuts out.
That's exactly right. And there is no better way to reduce stress than to stop thinking about all the nonsense that is coming at you from all directions. And do you know, this is heartbreaking. In 2019, that your average teenager spent about 8 minutes per day reading.
Not including text.
8 minutes per day reading. I'm talking about with engaged reading.
Right.
I'm not talking about, glancing at the side of a cereal box or, like you say, text and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about engaged, intentional reading. 8 minutes. Now, how many hours a day do they spend in school? 8?
I think 6 now.
What? Not, you know what I mean? A regular, normal, average, non-COVID.
Well, I mean, in
day.
class is like 5.
Yeah. So 8 minutes per day. And that number is probably going down. It is fundamentally important that you read, and that includes reading to your kids and doing all that kind of stuff, because if you want them to succeed, to create their own mission, and become the highest, if you don't want your child to become the highest form of themselves, or you don't do everything in your power to enable your child to become the highest form of themselves, then there's something very, very wrong going on there. And I think there's a lot of that these days, because I think people have less and less ability to know how or why to do that, because more and more things are done for them in the whole sort of bread and circuses arena. Adults are provided with distraction and with a culture that tells them that they don't really have to do it, that, the school will take care of it, the government will take care of it, whatever. And so you got to do it. Read, write, think, and connect. And that is your mind. And we come to spirit, third part of the triad. So whatever it is, whatever your version of it is, whatever form it takes, whatever word you use, you need to identify, acknowledge, and define the source of your animation, your spirit, your soul, your being. If you disavow or reject its existence or fundamental immanence, you will drift from randomness to randomness. Because why not? Doesn't matter. Nothing you do matters. You will never understand that you have a purpose. You will never know there is a path to the highest form of you. And the world needs you to be the highest form of you. You need to know that you have a purpose higher than whatever. You need to know that you have value. You need to be the highest form of you. So you need to, or the words I used earlier with the triad, which is develop, fortify, and cultivate your spirit. But as I said, first you have to identify, acknowledge, and define whatever that is for you. And then you need to develop, fortify, and cultivate it, because it's the metaphor of the three-legged stool, the triad, the SEMPER triad. And if you're missing one of the legs, it's not going to stand. And so it's a balance. One is not more important than the other. They all work together. And there's another aspect that's really kind of encompasses all parts of the triad that I didn't really delineate earlier when these thoughts and concepts were kind of solidifying within me. And it's an extraordinarily important aspect to this that, as I said, falls under all three, the umbrella of all three, body, mind, and spirit, and that's mental health. And it comes, as I said, with all three. You take care of your body, you feed the machine, and you care for the machine. Your mental health cannot be overstated. You need to take care of it. You take care of your body, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to have more self-respect. If you read, you write, you think, and connect, that you want to talk about an aspect that's going to help you, that's going to help your mental health more than reading, writing, thinking, and connecting. There is no such thing. There is nothing that's going to help you with that, with this mission, with staying mentally healthy, than doing those four things, and especially connecting with other people. And I mean real connections. I'm not talking about, oh, did you see what Gert did on Facebook? Did you see what Stu posted on Facebook? That's not real. That's not a connection. And it really bolsters your mental health and your spirit. Identifying, defining, cultivating. It's going to help balance you. And balance is important. If you are unbalanced, you are not mentally healthy. And the reason that I wanted to make sure that I brought mental health into this is that today there are an awful lot of people who are not doing well because of the upside down things that we're doing in our culture. The mental health aspect of this is critically important. If there's no other reason in the world, and that's why it's so good that I think that this sort of encompasses the whole thing. If you are out of sorts, if you are not feeling your best, if you are sad, if your relationships are falling apart, and if you're looking at somehow in some way to attenuate the suffering, then you need to see to your mental health. And the best way to sort of start that process is to start that mission, is to become a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve by doing things like taking care of your body, mind, and spirit.
Amen.
Amen. All right. So there'll be punch and cookies back in the fellowship hall. And so that was a lot.
It was, but you broke it down nicely.
Thank you. What are your thoughts? What do you think about that, adding mental health?
I think that's important, by all means, but I think that would come naturally if you did the three.
That's true. And that's sort of why I said, why? Go back to the question I started with, which is why. Mm-hmm. And I talked about a whole bunch of elevated concepts, but how about this? Because are you feeling mentally unhealthy? Well, I can't think of any better reason. How about that for a why? So,
right.
So that's why. That's why. That's a little bit about how, I don't know how you can get started. It's how I got started. And it's helped me quite a bit. It's helped me be more balanced. It's helped me do that, adhere to the concept of keeping one foot in chaos and one foot in order to create balance.
And I've noticed on my very slow journey, but it gets better. I've noticed that I ask a lot less of why, but now I start asking, why not?
Why not? Why? Why not? Yeah, I like it. Let's talk about a SEMPER action. We started that last time, which was communication. Enhancing and advancing the art of effective communication. So this week, and that was, I guess that would fall under the mind part of the triad. And this is going to fall more under the body part of the triad. And it's not about building it or improving it or anything like that. It is about protecting it. Be aware. Again, I am a husband and a father to a daughter. And so I become an entity that is much more hyper aware of nefarious forces in the world because of that. And that is simply in the nature of being who I am. So today's SEMPER action is, well, in the military and in certain other occupations and aspects, there's a term called PERSEC, and that's personal security. And you should always be vigilant when it comes to your personal security. And it's not for the 9,999 times that you're okay. It's for the one that you're not. And what I always taught my daughter, and I'm sure that your dad taught you, and that any mom or dad teaches any of their kids, which is be aware. We call it being switched on. Be aware. Bad guys, predators are looking for easy prey. They're not looking to get in a fight. They're not looking to get noticed. They're not looking to get into a confrontation, they're looking for easy prey. And if you walk through a parking lot with your head down in your phone, or just with your head, yep, exactly, or with your head down at all, if you're just shuffling along, you don't even have to be looking at your phone. You're just shuffling along. You got your head down, boom, you are a mark. You are making yourself into a mark. So be aware of your surroundings, be switched on. A couple things that you can do going outside of the concept and going into things that you can do, which is keys. I want you all to do the following whenever you are approaching your car or your home or if you live in a condo or an apartment, your mailbox, anything in which you have to engage a key and a lock, and that is going to bring your head down and distract you and put your back to all the threats. Get your key, whether it's let's say it's your front door key, get your front door key in your hand and ready to go way before you ever get to your door. Don't walk up to your door and you've closed off 180 degrees of your awareness and you're fumbling with your keys and and you're boom, you're a mark, you're a victim. You're making yourself into that. Get your house key or your car key, your fob, whatever it is, ready way before you get to that door or that lock. So that when you get there, you stop, you take a look around, you turn around, look around you, because if someone is looking at you as a mark and they see that you're looking around and that you're aware, they're not coming after you, not randomly. Now, if you're in some kind of CIA movie where, you're a target of assassins, well, then you're just fucked. They're going to come kill you anyway. Mm-hmm. But that ain't real. In the real world, a predator is looking for easy prey. And
I've been there in that exact situation that you just described.
How's that?
It was, I don't know, about 8 years ago or something. I was coming out of Kroger, got my groceries, and that's very vulnerable because now your hands are occupied and you're trying to pack it in and all that kind of stuff. But I saw a gentleman approaching me, and I could tell that he had dry blood coming out of his ear. He was not in good shape. He clearly had his... He was looking for money, I'm sure, for more drugs that were probably beaten out of him previously. But of course, he used the line of, I was in a car wreck and I'm trying to get home to my daughter in Alabama and I just need bus fare money. And he just kept coming and, okay, so I carry, but now my hands are full. And, and so I was on one side of my car. I walked around and put my car between us.
Yeah.
And so I did open up the passenger door and I'm putting the groceries in while having this conversation. And once I had the groceries down, I grabbed my phone. I said, well, why don't I call the police for you? It looks like you're in danger. You need medical attention. And he's like, oh, no, I'm fine. And then he scampered away.
And I'm glad that you told that story to get to that end. You can engage in a lot of habits that keep you from becoming an easy mark. But when you do become a mark, how do you act in that situation? And that's an important thing for people to hear as well, especially young people who for some reason are wildly trusting of, well, they don't trust their parents,
right,
but they'll trust strangers on the internet, is to know how to act once you have been marked. And that's good to know, which is don't put your back, like instead of going up to your car door, putting your back to the guy and trying to get in your car, put your car between you and that person. And then that's the magic thing, which is flip it around on them. Don't panic. Don't be like, oh, and start digging in your purse or just melting into a puddle of goo. Be proactive and say, let me get you some help. And if they are a predator, that's the last thing in the world they're going to want. If they're not, and that's another thing, is people can be sympathetic. And that's it's not an accident that people prey on that. Because we are naturally sympathetic people. We want to help. And so you can take yourself away from being the bad guy just by saying, no, get away from me, by saying, let me call somebody to help you. And if they're really in need of help, then you've done a good thing. if they're a predator, they're going to jet like that person because, as I said, they're looking for an easy mark. If they're insane, you're going to be in trouble. And if you're carrying, if you have a concealed permit, then good for you. And if not, you need to have your keys. That's the other thing you always, that's universal, which is walk with your keys in your fist like that, or do something to create a weapon out of your environment if you don't have one on you. Or when it comes right down to it, if you're in a parking lot of a grocery store and you have nothing left to do, what can you do?
Scream.
Exactly. Make a ruckus, scream and
There's
holler.
Cameras all over.
Anyway, so take care of your PERSEC. And part of what when we talk about parking lots is the thing that's called do the 5 and 25. And I taught my daughter that when you're parking before you get out of your car, because think about what you do unconsciously is especially ladies, because you got a lot of stuff going on that dudes don't have going on. You got the purse and the phone and the thing going on here, and you got, a list of whatever you need, and you just got a lot more going on. And dudes just are like roll up and jump on out, which is just as bad. But take yourself out of your distraction. And when you park, the 5 and 25 means look, you can say it in feet or yards. You can look 5 feet and 25 feet. That means look right next to your door and in your little immediate circle, and then look a little bit out. And you might be surprised how many people are actually looking right back at you. But you can, A, determine threats at that point, and B, if you make eye contact with somebody who's looking for an easy mark, they're going to look for somebody else. That's, again, don't make yourself into a victim, into prey. So do that. I wanted to do that with the keys, because that's something that I've been reminding my wife of a lot lately too, because there's a little bit of craziness in the world right now, which is don't be standing there. Don't take 180 degrees of your defenses away by being facing a wall or a door or a car with your back to the threats. And with your phone, we all need to, if we're walking in an unfamiliar city or we're looking, we look up on the navigator for, the next coffee shop or whatever it is. Or somebody calls us, or some mom texts us, and whatever. We all have those times in these days of ever-present communication where we need to address the phone in public. The best thing that you can do is turn your back to a wall, get yourself up against a wall so that you take away 180 degrees of potential threat. Turn around with your back to a wall, address your phone, but don't do your phone down here. Get your chin up out of your chest like this, and bring your phone up here a little bit so your eyes are still scanning. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fans,
to end where we started, that was a mouthful.
That was a mouthful. So that's your SEMPER action. Take care of your body with good PERSEC, personal security. Get your keys in your hand way before the lock. Take a look around in the parking lot. Don't pull yourself down into your own little world with your phone. So that's all I have for this particular version of Here's a Thing. How about
Thank you for watching. That is Scott Schroeder, and this is his podcast.
That is Melina Zettelmoyer, my compadre. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
And that's enough to ponder for now. Listen to me. The world needs more people of purpose. Fewer disappointments. Read, write, think, connect. Get there. Take care of your body, mind, and spirit. Work on becoming a self-engendering machine of perpetual effectiveness and resolve. SEMPER concept, SEMPER Triad. I hope you will continue to join me, and just as importantly, share this message and share this podcast. Snap link in, and let's go. Here's the Thing can be found on the Podbean app, Here's the Thing at Podbean.com, and everywhere else in the podcast universe. But I recommend you go through the Podbean app. You can also find the video version of this podcast on video dissemination platforms. I hope you enjoy. Remember, become a patron and donate to the cause by following the show link or by clicking the little $sign or the Become a Patron button on the Here's the Thing episode page of your Podbean app. That's patron.podbean.com/Here's the Thing. Many thanks to our patrons. Whatever you're about to do, get after it 100% or don't bother going through the motions. You owe that to yourself because integrity matters. Be mindful, be fit, be authentic. It'll pay off.
Whew, I've lost my cursor. There it is. That was
long.
something. What the hell time is it? It's 5:30.
It is 5:38. And I actually sent you, I was like, my husband's going to be home any minute. He's going to come crashing through here. I'll just hit mute on the mic or something. I was like, we need to wrap this up. But
All right.
he's not here yet.
Show's over. Play next.